Greetings, everyone! RetroIndieGamer here. And today I'm here with my thoughts on the Nintendo E3 press conference. And I thought it was pretty decent. But while I'm at it, I'm also doing a substitute for Nintendo Weekend instead of doing it today instead of over the weekend. Mostly because of the E3 thing. I mean, this will be the only week in which the episodes are not released in their proper dates. So Indie Tuesday will be on my other channel on probably sometime on Saturday. But anyway, yeah, today we're going to be looking at one of my all-time favorite Nintendo games, the original Legend of Zelda for the NES, which has been ported to just about every console. And I've had every single version of this game at one point, ironically, except for the NES version. Though, since I do have an NES now, I probably will try and get the gold card. The gold card for this game is a joke to find. Anyway, this is mostly about this and my. And before I get to my E3, let's talk a little briefly about the history of this game. Yeah, Legend of Zelda is definitely one of the more important early NES games. Besides starting one of Nintendo's most successful series. And it's also a follow-up to a lot of older action RPGs such as Hydlide and Dragon Slayer. And I think Yeast might have been around the same time, actually. And this game is a refinement of a lot of older games like that. Though the Zelda games I know they're often called action RPGs, they're not. With the exception of the second game. I mean, action-adventure fits the definition for this series perfectly. And it's a formula that's been copied time and time again. But very few games have ever copied it perfectly, or done it in a way that spawned a series. And I also notice that this game is probably the only starting point of Nintendo's older series that never received a remake. I mean, Super Mario Brothers received the excellent Super Mario Bros. All-Stars remake. Metroid received the Metroid Zero Mission remake. And let's see. Yeah, the starts of Nintendo's older series. The original Legend of Zelda is the only one that has not been remade. Oh wait, it was remade. I remember because one of my older videos had a video of the saddle views of the saddle view remake of the original Legend of Zelda for the Super Nintendo, which sadly was only available for a short amount of time. And has not been available in at least 2 decades. Which is a shame, because it was a great remake. But I'll get to that later. It's the only one, or I should rephrase, it's the only one that hasn't received a proper remake. No! Fail. Let's see. Anyway, this is mostly about my thoughts on E3. Let's see. The first one I showed is the game I'm going to be currently referring to as Smash Bros. 4, because it is the one for 3DS and Wii U, because it is the 4th game in the Smash Bros. Series. Of course, one thing I noticed was the thing of playing as Mii's. That's a great concept. Playing as a Mii. Kill these guys. Kill these guys! And let's see. Oh, no! Yeah, playing as me is a great idea. And notice how to have that with it must be the amiibo thing, which is a lot like Disney Infinity. I think Skylanders, they both have a similar setup with little toy things you use to get benefits in the games. Let's see. Mii's have character, and the Mii's have a lot of different character classes. I mean, what is it, Smash Brothers or an RPG? So I guess that's a way of defining each of them as their own characters. Which is definitely a good thing, sort of. I mean, using Mii's in a Smash Brothers game is a great idea. But hopefully this Smash Bros. Will be in a better format than Smash Bros. Brawl. As Smash Bros. Brawl used one of the worst disc formats ever for the Wii. I mean, it used a type of disc that, which is really difficult to read. It's probably the reason why the only two games that used it were Super Smash Bros. Brawl and Metroid Other M. Now, I hope we see another entry in that series eventually, but anyway. And I showed a little bit of the 3DS one. I like the stages. And one of them looked like Rainbow Road from the Mario Kart games. And also had a stage based off of Balloon Fight. One of a really old NES game. And easily one of the best. And of course, it has a little few goodies from the older games, like that baseball mini game of the sandbag, and also show character customization, which could be a really good idea, especially since this is essentially a fighting game. But not as irritating as fighting games. Let's see. I'm trying to read my notes here. Let's see. Now, I remember looking at the assist. They showed some of the assist trophies, and one of the ones I saw was Twinrova from Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and the Oracles. That'll be interesting to see. I mean, those witches are probably among the most interesting characters in the series. Of course, it's coming out in holiday 2014. The whole thing with Disney Infinity-like setup, it's a great idea. Those maybe attempt to save their console. But granted, this console's not the worst they've done. I mean, look at the Virtual Boy. They got rid of that thing after it was around for barely a year. Of course, some consoles have terrible lineups in the first couple of years, like the original DS. I mean, I remember after its first year or so, and maybe the first year and a half. I mean, there are a few good games, but there are a whole lot of bad ones too. But anyway, let's see. The next one was which really caught my attention, was Yoshi's Woolly World, which I assume is for the Wii U, which looks really interesting. Die! It had a really nice setup and a nice style, which is very similar to Kirby's Epic Yarn, but I hope this game is better than Epic Yarn, because I'm not that big a fan of Epic Yarn. You know, I'm a huge Kirby fan, but I can find no excuse for that game's existence. I mean, the music was dull, and the gameplay was very simplistic. And of course, I eventually figured, and of course, the only reason I got through it was because it was a Kirby game. And this is the only game in the series I sold, intentionally. Hell, the only reason I decided to complete it was when I figured out that it was impossible to die. Which in any game is stupid. and it removes any sense of challenge. Here's a white sword. So as you can tell, I might tell, I'm not a big fan of that particular Kirby game. But anyway, for Yoshi's Woolly World, I mean, it looks good, and let's see. I'm just bringing up my notes here. And it has two-player mode, which I don't think I've seen in a Yoshi game before. And they showed some of the textures, and 3D models, they looked really good. I mean, one thing that's computer graphics, that CG graphics I've had trouble with for years is getting texture. But with games like this and some of and games like Little Big Planet, depending on how they're doing it, they seem to be getting better. And it's coming out in 2015, like most great games revealed at this press conference. And let's see, one that was definitely interesting was Captain Toad Treasure Hunter. Toad getting his own game after how many years? After what, like 100, like, how many years has it been since Yoshi's had his own game? Has Toad ever gotten his own game? No, he hasn't. Yoshi's gotten several. Peach has gotten one, I think. But some of them were probably not that great. I mean, I like the idea of playing as Toad, and it's a fun concept, treasure hunting. Hopefully without saying that the princess is in our castle. And that line has haunted many a gamer. And of course, in that case, when you get to, of course, in the original Super Mario Bros. And in Lost Levels, but in Lost Levels you get an actual ending. In the original Super Mario Bros., yeah, Peach is like basically saying, "Congratulations, you beat the game. Now play it again." Arrgh! And of course, when you get through the game again, it's the same thing over and over again. But anyway, and the bosses looked cool, and one of the bosses in particular reminded me of one of the bosses from, I think it was, from a couple of the dragon bosses in the Paper Mario games. Which I thought was really cool. Of course, now the next one is the reason I'm playing this particular game. Yeah, the new Zelda game announced for 2015. Of course, I knew it was going to come out in 2015 because there's no way Nintendo would be stupid enough to release a spin-off and a main entry in any of their series on the same console in the same year. I think other companies have been that stupid, but I don't think Nintendo would do that. No, the graphics of this new Zelda game look really nice. But granted, it's probably an early graphic build, but so who knows? And lots of space, and the way it's stratifying with the depth and being able to get to all areas seen in that area that we saw in the trailer. No, I can't tell a screenshot because the characters are moving, but I don't know. It sounds and the way it mentioned focusing on things like exploration, it sounds an awful lot like the first Zelda, like this game, the original Legend of Zelda, which had a heavy focus on exploration, but in the entire series, it's never done like that again. I mean, it's done a couple times in the series, but mostly in A Link to the Past, and A Link Between Worlds does something similar. But for the most part, especially since Ocarina of Time, they've moved away from the exploration aspects mostly. Though the Wind Waker did help with something similar. So hopefully this game will have exploration like the original Zelda, which you do things in any order. Yeah, notice how I'm getting some of the power-ups before I even enter the first dungeon. Yeah, this is a game in which once you find out certain things, you can do them in pretty much any order you feel like. Or in a way that'll make the game a little bit easier. like getting the white sword early on, which you need a certain number of hearts to get. And it shows some of the enemies, and some of the enemies look nice. And so is a new design for Link, with the sort of bluish suit, the sort of bluish outfit. Though knowing other games, which he starts off with a different outfit, it's likely that he will get a new outfit. That he will get the regular green tunic eventually. I mean, you can't have Link without that tunic. And of course, as I already mentioned, it's coming out in 2015, not surprising anybody. I mean, especially with Hyrule Warriors also coming out this year. And we just had a major Zelda game last year, Link Between Worlds for 3DS. Let's see, they also announced Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. I'm guessing that, judging from the names and the appearances of some of the characters and the sprites and enemies in the game, I'm guessing that, and some of the Pokemon, I'm guessing that's a remake of Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire for Game Boy Advance. Cartridges are now over a decade old. And most Pokemon games, because they're in such high demand, and I can see what, and they're probably not terribly easy to find. I mean, I know a little bit about this because I collect older games. That the Pokemon games, while they're not exactly rare, they are in extremely high demand. So if you want to get those, you've got to find them. If you find one of those, and if you want the games, you better snatch up quick. Thankfully, a lot of these older ones being remade for newer consoles might help with that one. I can't really see much about this since I'm not a huge Pokemon fan. And let's see, Bayonetta 2. That's really interesting. I still remember saying some things about when it was announced as a Wii U exclusive and the sort of controversy it stirred up. Before Platinum Games mentioned that the reason they did it was because without Nintendo getting involved, they wouldn't have been able to make the game at all. But also mentioned that it's the first time that it's the first time a sequel to a game has been on a different console company from the original. That shows lack of ignorance pretty much anything to do with gaming history. As it's certainly not the first and not the last. And it won't be the last either. I mean, remember Final Fantasy? Though the first 6 were available, the first 6 were on Nintendo consoles, and though they did end up on other consoles, the 7th one was on Sony, was made exclusively to Sony consoles and the PC. Yeah, for those of you wondering why Final Fantasy 7 and 8 are on Steam, that's why. Those two are all already made for the PC. And that's just one example of games which they released the sequels on different console companies. And let's see, Castlevania has been everywhere, but in terms of exclusives. Well, they'd all end up in Nintendo consoles with the exception of a couple until the PlayStation era. And really, I can go on and on about this one. But this game looked really nice. I mean, the graphics look good. And the character designs I liked. And same thing with the voice acting. I mean, the voice overs. And let's see. And the music. Wrong one. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Let's see what's up. Oh, and I like some of the costumes of certain Nintendo characters. Of course, one thing I saw that I think it also included the original Bayonetta, which would be a really good idea. That way, people playing the second one on the Wii U can also play the original. I mean, what is this? What is this? I mean, what has the last couple of years been? Remaking games that are barely 10 years old, some of which are barely 5 years old. I mean, some remakes that were announced this year for on the at the upper. Oh, here's one of the best glitches in the original Legend of Zelda. See that locked door? Exit the dungeon. And enter it again. Unlocked. Yeah, it's nice looking at all these different tricks. Yeah, it seems like a lot of games are being remade this year. I mean, some make sense because the lack because some can't be played on modern systems like the original Ratchet and Clank. And one that made sense was Grim Fandango, as that game was a PC game from 1998. And because of that, it's a game that, and trust me, I know from experience, it runs terribly in modern PCs. Oh, Stalfos, enemies that have been around since the beginning of the series. And the only enemies in the Zelda series to appear in every single game. But anyway, let's look at some of these. Let's see. Oh yeah, speaking of Zelda, next one I took notes on was Hyrule Warriors. Yeah, it's good action style. I mean, considering it's a spin-off of Dynasty Warriors, which granted I have not personally played, but I would like to play them at one point. And let's see, the fighting looks good, and the whole fighting army is nice. And giant bosses only makes sense within the Zelda series. I mean, it only makes sense. These stupid things die. The one looked like the dragon from Twilight Princess. I mentioned something about two-player mode, which in Zelda games are not very common. And some of the playable characters sounded nice. Like one of the playable characters being Impa. I mean, it looks like the Skyward Sword Impa, but I doubt it's that particular Impa because, and I apologize if this is a brief spoiler for Skyward Sword, that particular Impa died. Though the character of Impa has been around since the original game in the series. Maybe not in the game itself, but she was referenced in the instruction manuals in the Japanese and North American versions, I think, for the first two games. Though her first appearance in the series was not until Ocarina of Time. So on this channel, I'll probably make a video of it at one point. Let's see, another one that surprised me that Midna is playable. That's really nice. She's probably one of my favorite Zelda companions. Right behind Fi and Zelda. And of course, it seems there's going to be a lot of playable characters. Hopefully old favorites from throughout the series. And it shows some old enemy design, old enemies enemy designs, like for Stall Children. You know, remember those skeleton thingies that appeared in the field at night and as a child in The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time? Those things. Let's see, Killigarias. Oh yeah, I got the boomerang. Let's see. And it comes out on September 26th. Let's see. Oh yeah, so the next one. Kirby and the Rainbow Curse. What's with Kirby and curses? First using Canvas Curse, and now this. Though granted, that's a Kirby game I need to get my hands on. Kind of kill Archimedes, the first boss. And I like how you design paths, and it also has a nice look. Don't die! That was easy. And he's one of the bosses you fight twice in the game. And let's see, this Kirby game, yeah, the design passing looks nice. I mean, I've always seen it in a couple games. Like, I think I saw it in one of the Yoshi's Island games for DS. And I think it was also in one of the Rainbow Island games for DS. It shows a lot of old enemies in the Kirby series. Let's die, Octoroks, die! And showed some of the power-ups, which is one of the points of it. But another one interesting, again, looking at the year of remakes. Xenoblade Chronicles. I mean, good music, character designs, the environment. I like the ship designs, and it showed mechs, and coming out in 2015. Now, this remake kind of makes sense, as the Wii version is available mostly as GameStop exclusive. Which means not only does it make that pretty difficult to find, it also makes it ridiculously expensive. Used! Which is outrageous since the game's only a couple of years old. And it's already like $60 or something used? I find that outrageous. Hopefully Nintendo will not release it exclusively for GameStop this time. Seriously, don't do it. And that's really infuriating. Especially since that game is pretty difficult. Well, that makes the game pretty difficult to find. Listen, number one I found that as a novice indie, as a kind of amateur indie developer was really nice is the Mario Maker, basically designing Mario courses. Though you can also do this with a couple of game design programs and getting access to some of the Mario sprites. But that's actually really cool as a game designer. And it's simple to do because they're platform games, which in terms of design are not terribly difficult. The only thing that might be slightly challenging being enemy designs, or design the enemy AI. But I like how you can choose the graphic style from the older Mario, from the original Super Mario Brothers, to the new style in the new games. Though I would like it to throw in some of the other graphic style from the Mario series, like the graphics used in Super Mario, Super Mario Brothers 4 and 3. And those of you wondering where Super Mario Brothers 4 is, it's Super Mario World. Literally, the Japanese title of the game is Super Mario World, Super Mario Brothers 4, Super Mario World. And notice how the Mario Maker thing has this fly swatter from Mario Paint. I wonder if that means it also includes that mini game. I mean, that would be epic. Oh, man, one thing I should mention in this game, which is definitely an improvement over other games in the series, that's something that other games in the series fixed, is that notice I bought the bow. You only have to buy it once, but every time you shoot an arrow, it uses up a rupee. I find it interesting, but it's fine since you only need to use a bow a couple times in the game, and you only need it to kill 2 bosses, Goma and Ganon himself. And let's see. Oh yeah, the next game that showed that looked really nice is Splatoon. With an online multiplayer action game. This is a clean surf by using ink. Brilliant idea. And the maps looked like they had great designs. And it uses squids, and the whole thing is switching between squids and humans depending on where you are on the map. Great idea. I also enjoyed the heavily stylized style. I mean, I prefer any stylized style over any realistic style. Mostly because it shows some degree of creativity. And that some thought went into how the characters look. Okay, I do not want to go to that dungeon yet. Wait, am I at the right dungeon? If not, I'll leave it right now. Nope, this is the right one. And let's see, Splatoon had a lot of great ideas. And I like it in using terror thing to check where your opponents are on the map. Great idea. And I also like all the colors. Let it see where the other guys are, and using some sort of fast travel to where they're at. It's coming out in 2015. Nintendo, if you're trying to save the Wii U, you might want to have a few more games for this year. I'm just saying. Well, granted, getting headbutt these games might actually help the console. I mean, Mario Kart 8 and Smash Brothers will definitely help boost the sales. And also getting rid of the original Wii. As I'm sure that thing sticking around is not helping. I mean, it's going to lead to a lot of consumer confusion. I mean, the names are so similar that I know there's going to be a lot of people confusing the two. And really, I can't blame them. Die, enemies, die! So, I mean, I'm all for supporting the Wii U, and with a couple great games, I'll probably buy the thing, but you guys really need to step your game up with that thing. Let's see, the last part was something to do with Smash Brothers Brawl. No, not Smash Brothers Brawl, the new Smash Brothers, which showed an animation between Link versus Pit, which is a really good animated fight. Of course, then Palutena came in revealing her as a character. In the new Smash Brothers, you can play as. I mean, I think she was an assist trophy in Brawl, but it would have been nice to actually see her as an actual playable character. Of course, we also saw Dark Pit in that thing. So maybe he'll be in there too. I don't know. Let's see. Kill the snakes. Another key. Yeah, the one thing I found interesting that one franchise I hope Nintendo makes more games in is the Kid Icarus series. I mean, come on, the first game I think came out in either 1986 and 1987. No! That's it! I mean, that game came out, and the second Smash Brothers came out a while ago. I mean, the first Kid Icarus game came out in, like, what, the 80s? There's only 3 games in the series. That one, the second one came out, I think, for the Game Boy in 1990, and then the third game in 2011. Is there 2011 or 2012? Well, it's a great game. It would be nice to see more entries in that series. Well, I find it interesting how the third Kid Icarus mentioned the sequels. We mentioned that the series has been gone for like 25 years or so. I find that interesting. I find that really interesting, considering that particular game. Oh, ignore these things. Let's see. Yeah, that because the second game came out in 1990, I think. So the series had been around, had come back, but it hadn't been around for a while. That's probably the point they're trying to make. Then I found out that the second Kid Icarus never came out in Japan until it was released on the 3DS Virtual Console. Now and the animation is really nice. And it makes me think that maybe Nintendo should try to make an actual Zelda cartoon. And maybe help some fans to forget about the 80s cartoon. Though I've seen every episode of that cartoon and actually enjoy it a bit. I mean, it's fun to watch. Yeah, some parts may look cheesy by today's standards, but keep in mind that when most of the episodes being made, the only thing it had was a brief snippet of the instruction manual from this particular game. And only the first game, and it was a product, and it was an '80s show, which explains pretty much everything in that thing. I mean, violence on television was a big issue back at the time, and that show was a product of its time. It would be nice to see another Zelda cartoon from the modern era. Maybe use to tell some stories like between games or something. That's one way to kill those things. Well, I think Nintendo has shied away from making movies off their games since the Super Mario Brothers movie disaster. And really, I can't blame them since most movies based off of games suck. Now the magic boomerang. Well, I think I covered everything I can for today's bit for Nintendo E3 press conference. Pretty interesting, though most of the games announced are not coming out till next year. Which does not sound good, Nintendo. I mean, I really support you guys. I really do, but it would help to have a couple more blockbuster games for the Wii U this year. 2014. Well, I think that's all I've covered today. I mean, it was one of the better E3 best press conferences. It definitely wasn't the worst. That award goes to Ubisoft's. But they could have done with announcing more games for this year. But granted, there are a couple that probably will hold the system over for a little while longer. Well, anyway, until next time, everyone.